Hey, what's going on, guys? This is your host, Jay, and you're watching From Inside Out. Thank you guys so much for joining. I do very much appreciate it. Once again, right here in front of you, I'm your host, Jay, and this is another podcast right here in our studios from Inside Out. Thank you guys so much for joining. I do appreciate it. And as usual, we got on the hot phone the owner and founder from Inside Out. Excuse me, my colleague, my great sister, my best friend, Jaylee. Welcome to the show again, Jaylee.
Thanks for having me, Jay. It's been an honor to be here.
Yeah, well, obviously for all of us, including all the listeners and fans and whatnot, it's an honor to have you. So you're a pretty big asset to this podcast. So once again, thank you so much for all you've done to make this in my personal opinion, a successful podcast. So what's on the agenda for today, Jaylee?
Well, we have a couple of topics to talk about today. One very informative topic, but there's a topic that's probably a lot more important in the studio's opinion, and that's the topic of one of our loyal fans who's been a loyal fan and dedicated fan to this show for the past 4.5, 5 years.
Okay.
Definitely wanted to send out a shout out to her, recognize her loyalty and dedication on behalf of the entire studio, and I'm sure you know who that is, Jay.
If I were to guess, is it our great friend and follower, Lane Polson?
It sure is.
Nice. What do you got to say about her?
Well, look, there's nothing bad I could ever say about Lane Polson. She has been a diehard fan from day one, a loyal listener, and a great supporter in times of need. And I just want to make sure she understands how much we appreciate her and everything that she's done over the past 4.5, 5 years. She's been one of our first original fans, and she has not given up on us. She's not gone away. She's been there from day one, and we want to honor her today.
Well, this is the best place to do it, in my personal opinion, is to give people, their voice to be heard for a change. Because like I've said, Jaylee, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, I've said numerous times in this podcast that this right here is just not our podcast. It's all of yours, too, at the same time. Jaylee?
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. Because the fans want to have a voice as well, and it's so very important to give them a voice on a platform such as this. And most importantly, their loved ones who may be incarcerated, or they may know somebody who's incarcerated. So we provide a service that most other podcasts don't provide.
Well, this is the best place to do it. So I'm honored. That would be awesome. So what's our topic for tonight, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I just wanted to make sure we cover the fact that, Lane, thank you so much on behalf of the entire From Inside Out Studios for all you have done, and we definitely will never forget it, and we are here for you and your family as well, so please reach out anytime you need help. And so on behalf of the entire podcast studio team, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And again, I did mention to her in one of the chats that we did from my previous podcast, and wished her a very late, but anyways, still promising and still meaningful, in my personal opinion, a very late birthday. Did you want to do the same on your end there, Jaylee?
Yes, I believe I have wished her a happy birthday, but just for the record, yes, happy belated birthday there to Lane. May she have many more to come.
Absolutely. All right. Well, the floor is yours. Go ahead and take this podcast over, and we'll take the next step. Thank you very much for being a part of the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Jay. This second topic today is very meaningful because it discusses what a lot of us really need to know that otherwise we would not know unless certain material was created for us to study and learn. And if anybody has ever known who I am, they know I'm big on education. So I found a book recently that you can locate on prisonlegalnews.org. You can find that at pln.org. That's prisonlegalnews.org. And on that site, there's a book that they sell called Protecting Your Health and Safety. It's about a 390-page paperback book. It's about $10. It's not that expensive, but it's very much worth the cost because the information inside is priceless. And as we know, knowledge is power. So I want to run through some of the chapters of this book, some important paragraphs, and maybe answer any questions that people may have if there are questions. But if not, give people a general understanding why this book is important.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought that up because, believe it or not, I actually have what you just said or talked about or mentioned up on my screen, and I'm going to pop it up right now. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the book and information that my great colleague and founder from Inside Out is talking about. All right, so let me put that there so you guys can see it. So here it is, ladies and gentlemen, on the screen in its entirety. The webpage, again, just like Jaylee mentioned, is Prison Legal News. You can follow them right now, not just here on Google or internet searches, but you can also follow them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. All right. And you can also donate to these guys for a good cause because you know their money will be used very importantly. It wouldn't be a waste. You can also set up and have your own account with these guys, it looks like. And you can follow these guys on everything that you see here on their page. They even have a bookstore, which is what we're on now. And this is the book that my great colleague Jaylee is going to talk about. So for the remainder of this podcast, of course, if there's anything I need to say, I'll add it. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and let Jaylee have the floor and talk about this book called, right here in front of your face, Protecting Your Health and Safety, which is a big milestone in a sense because obviously, from all the shows I've done, we definitely need protection, health, and safety inside of our prisons. Jaylee?
Yeah, absolutely. We can't underestimate or understate that enough. And that's why books like this are created, because the team at Prison Legal News and their authors and their managers, they understand the need to educate prisoners today, whether you're in a county jail or actually confined in a state or federal lockup. You need to be educated so that you can fight for your human rights and your human dignity. And so that's why this book was so important. I thought it was important enough to share with our fans and get it out there so that people can understand just how important this is based on the knowledge inside this book. So if you don't mind, Jay, I'd like to read a couple of paragraphs from this book so people get a better perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The like I said, knowledge is power. Like you said, knowledge is power. And hey, I'm all for it. So the floor is yours. The hot mic's on. It's all yours. Go ahead, Jaylee.
Thank you, Jay. So I'm going to read from chapter 2 inside this book. And chapter 2 starts out and says, Overview of the law. Under section A, it says, Introduction, Rights and Duties. Many people talk about their rights, but not everyone understands what that means. Talking about rights is another way of talking about the law. A right is a form of power or protection that exists under the law. It gives you legal power to act in a certain way or legal protection from certain conduct by others. For every right that a person has, someone else has a duty. For example, if an employee has a right to be paid for her work, her boss has a duty to pay her. This right and duty exists under the law of contract. Every person has, at the same time, a right not to be robbed on the street and a duty not to commit robbery. This right and duty exists under criminal law. However, this manual deals with what is often called prisoners' or inmates' rights, powers and protections that the law gives to state and county inmates, what we refer to as prisoners. As a general matter, these are rights that apply only against government officials or people who carry out government functions. For example, you have a right to be free from excessive force, and the officials who guard you have a duty not to use excessive force against you. So it's easy to talk about rights in the abstract, but this manual essentially talks about those rights that you have while incarcerated, and it does so not just in abstract form, but explains the rights that inmates have relating to their health and safety. Now that's just an overview of Chapter 2. Back to you, Dick.
Wow, that's some very informative information, and thank you so much for sharing that with all of us here tonight from Inside Out. Jaylee?
Yes, now I want to read something that I think is very, very important to everyone listening today, and that is our First Amendment rights. And you know a little bit about that, don't you, Jay?
Oh, absolutely. But maybe I'll save that for later down the road for something else if it's needed. But absolutely.
Yeah, so this book talks about First Amendment rights that prisoners have while incarcerated, whether in a county jail, or a federal or state lockup. One of the most important things that we have in this country is the First Amendment right to a political decision, whoever we want to vote for as our leaders. And that's why the First Amendment is so important, because our speech cannot be restricted by anybody except and unless your speech is used to harm somebody, then you're liable for what you say. However, most importantly, if your speech is because it's your political point of view, or you're speaking about the outrage over somebody being used or abused, then nobody has the right to censor you regarding that speech. So political rights allow American citizens to take part in our democracy. They include the right to vote, the right to serve on a jury, and the right to run for political office. The Constitution allows, but does not require states to take away the right to vote from people who have been convicted of felonies. And we're going to address that in future shows about how prisoners are disenfranchised because of their conviction. But this book goes on and talks about the First Amendment rights that prisoners have while in prison. And the most important one is access to the courts.
There you go.
Without us having access to the courts, we can never address our grievances.
Right.
The courts will never know what's going. The courts will never know what's going on if we can't communicate with the courts. That's you, Jay.
Right. No, I'm sorry to cut you off. I got to get better at that. So I do apologize. But nonetheless, I'm glad you brought that part up right there, because believe it or not, that has happened to you multiple times, unfortunately. Can you touch base on that? And your due process of law also got violated. You want to hint on that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And that's important because we have the First Amendment right to speak out. And one of the things I tried to do during the COVID lockdown was to speak out about the injustices that me and you went through with our own family when we were trying to litigate a family real estate transaction. And I could not even communicate with the courts during the COVID lockdown, because at that time, the policy was that I could only file documents through an email portal, which I had no access to.
Oh, very
So
interesting.
You can see the difficulty with trying to communicate with the courts, and because I did not have access to email, and only the law librarian did, and during COVID, they shut the law library down, so now I can't email the court, and because of that, I lost the case. And that's just one of many examples.
Yeah, and that should be illegal. I'm sorry you lost that case. That's screwed up in my personal opinion. I'm pretty sure that everybody that's listening will agree. Total rights violation right there. Due process of rights violation. I mean, it's so many things. I mean, that is so messed up. And of course, I'm pretty sure you can't restart that now, can you?
No, unfortunately, it's too late now. But basically, I was screaming around a loud vacuum, and nobody could hear me. And that's how frustrating it was.
So right there, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from the horse's mouth. We don't make this stuff up. This happens on a daily in all of our prisons, ladies and gentlemen. That's real talk on that. Everywhere wherever you live, wherever you go, and so forth and yada yada, this type of nonsense happens in our prisons. So the bigger question that gets, the bigger question that gets brought up to me, and I'm pretty sure brought up to Jaylee too as well, is, well, what can we do to stop it from happening? I mean, we hear it all. So I guess I'm going to ask the same question that I get asked. What can we do to fix this? What can we do to make this better, Jaylee?
Yeah, that's the ultimate question today. Unfortunately, we can't go back into the past and fix something that happened in the past, but we can work together to try and prevent this from happening in the future. And one way we can do that is to try and contact your legislative representatives and your state governors and press upon their hearts and minds the need to make sure that they have the staffing available at a prison to simply deal with email filing. I mean, how ridiculous is it to find somebody with authority to pick up a document and email it to the court?
Right. Yeah, I know. And man, talk about frustration all the way around. So we need major change, guys. You can see it firsthand just from this conversation here tonight on this podcast show. We need change yesterday. And we need to really, buckle down, get serious about this, and bring real, true change to our system. Jaylee?
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit more in this chapter talking about First Amendment rights. I think this is one of the more important ones too, Jay. It talks about communicating with the outside world.
Oh.
The First Amendment prohibits the government from abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. And jail and prison officials, however, may limit inmates' ability to speak their mind and communicate with the outside world. But again, those restrictions have limitations as well.
Right.
Officials may read and censor your non-privileged incoming mail, provided that they act pursuant to regulations or policies that are reasonably related to legitimate penitentiary interests. They may inspect your mail for contraband or censor it for purposes of maintaining security and discipline or preventing criminal activity or promoting the goal of rehabilitation. But there's much, much more they cannot do, and when I call back, I'll discuss that.
All right. Well, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to wait till Jaylee calls back. The
caller has hung up.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sorry about that pause. As I've told you guys before, in these podcasts, Jaylee has timed phone calls and also the record and everything like that. So I have to, when their time runs out, she has to call back. You get the idea. Enough of that. But anyways, welcome back to the show, Jaylee. How you doing?
Yeah, doing good. Before our break, we were talking about First Amendment with communicating with the outside world and our right to send and receive mail. So I'd like to finish that paragraph, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, Okay, so we talked about incoming mail and what the prison mailroom can do with incoming mail. There's a difference, though, when it comes to outgoing mail. And the difference with that is, well, really it's simple. See, when we try to send mail out of a prison, not into a prison, the policy is this. The mail doesn't have to be screened as strictly as if it was coming in, because it's not coming into the prison, it's leaving the prison. So the prison mailroom staff can't just grab a letter and open it without a warrant or without reasonable suspicion that there's some kind of contraband in the mail. Otherwise, they have to let the mail leave, no matter what the volume of mail may be. Okay. So that's why you get greater protections when you try to communicate leaving the facility and sending something to the outside world.
Right. And Jaylee, can I say something real quick on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but every time, like, for example, I get mail from you, the envelope that you put your mail in and send out to me is already been, like, open, and they tape it. So when you seal yours, it's like on the not where the seal where you sealed it, on the other side and whatnot is already opened and it was taped. So you want to explain that?
Wow, I did not even know that they were doing that with my outgoing mail. I had not been told that before, and there's no reason for them to be snooping in my outgoing mail. So that's quite a shock.
Yeah, I thought I taught it. Excuse me. Let me try that again. I'm tired, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I told you about that, and if I didn't, I apologize on that.
No, things get overlooked sometimes, but I think that's shocking. But that's another classic example, ladies and gentlemen, of government intrusion and abuse of power. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing anything criminal, and here they are snooping in my outgoing mail. That's a violation of my First Amendment right there. Absolutely.
Well, maybe again, we can look into that, see what we can do. But, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, again, I've talked many times on this podcast about violations this, a violation that, Eighth Amendment violations, First Amendment violations, and so forth. Coming from the horse's mouth, the owner and founder from Inside Out just basically said, in a nutshell, that if you're outgoing, there's a difference, outgoing and ingoing, and I'll explain more about that here in just a second. But your outgoing mail cannot be touched by prison staff. If your mail has been looked at, touched, or whatever, then that's a First Amendment violation. So make sure that, when you get your mail from your locked up loved one, before you open it, look around on the envelope. If it's been cut and taped, that means somebody already looked at it prior to its leaving the prison system. Jaylee?
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And again, the only way they would have authority to do that is if they had prior reasonable suspicion of contraband being in the envelope, which I can't imagine there would ever be that.
Well, even the
family friends and loved ones don't abuse the system that way.
Right. Well, even if there was, and let's just say hypothetically for the podcast here tonight, let's say there was, they still have to give you probable cause and also due process of law to fight that and check it out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's what I'm saying is that they still have to follow Fourth Amendment privacy interests, search and seizure rules, contraband and evidence handling. Mm-hmm. They got to do a myriad of different paperwork in order to protect our First Amendment.
Right. And what you see on this, what you guys see on your screen right now, is the major reason why we're doing this podcast here tonight. Prison Legal News. And they are very advocate on human rights defense. This is what their main thing is. They're here to protect our locked up loved ones' rights. And if you've got something going on right now and you need help, you can reach out to these guys, Or you can reach out to us right now at voicesfrominsideout@gmail.com. Once again, our contact information to get a hold of me regarding this podcast tonight or any of them that I've done in the past, our email is voicesfrominsideout@gmail.com. Email me with your concerns, problems, your locked up loved one, any kind of problem you have, and I, or should I say we, will either give you the advice that we know from experience or we will send you in the right direction. Jaylee?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the main reasons why our podcast studio was created, because we want to be a central hub for a lot of these issues and then point people in the right direction in case there are problems.
Right. No, absolutely. And keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, I've done a show a while back, and it's up on my platform. You just got to scroll down and find it. The title is called, I think it's called Jailhouse Lawyer Handbook. Another great piece of advice tied into what we're talking here tonight. I did a show on that, and I told you everything from basically your what your rights are, what happens if you get violated, and so forth, and all of that. So again, if your locked up loved one is going through some type of situation, get a hold of us. We're here to help. Jaylee?
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's what really drives what we do. Because when we are successful and we are able to help somebody, we just ask them to pay it forward. Advertising is very important to us because if you help advertise for us and get this podcast out there, we can actually help more people. And so would you please, talk about this podcast with your friends. Have them put it up on their social media platforms. Spread it around. Let the world know that we're here to help and provide people the resources that they need.
Right, absolutely. And again, ladies and gentlemen, too, why I got you on my full screen now, I want to bring to you guys' attention, if you're not already aware of it. Some of you should be aware of it, but for the ones that are not, we have a merch line now, up and running, live, right now. If you want to support this channel, that's just one of the best ways you can do that right now, by going to my From Inside Out store and purchasing one of our From Inside Out t-shirts. When you buy it, wear it, send a picture of you wearing it, and show us your support by sporting that t-shirt. I will definitely really appreciate if you were to do that in honor of this podcast, in honor of this show. And not to mention, in honor of our great colleague, owner, and founder from Inside Out, Jaylee. Jaylee?
Yeah, I really appreciate that too, and all of your thoughts and prayers and everything that you've done since the beginning has been very, very well received and respected. So on behalf of this studio, my brother Jay, thank you so much for your hard work over the past 4.5 years. We're coming up on our 5th year running this show, and I'm sure we're going to come up with a special show on that day.
Holy crap! I had a brain fart. I totally spaced on that. Is it really almost been 5 years?
Yeah.
You can tell where I've been. But yeah, thank you for the kind words, sis. Thank you for the kind words, sis. I do appreciate it. But man, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, well, there's been so much going on since 2018, and we've been really busy, haven't we?
That's an understatement. Is there anything that you want to add in our closing thoughts for tonight's podcast? It probably isn't what a lot of people would like tonight, but nonetheless, some great information. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if your locked up loved one is being violated in any way, especially when it comes to violation to our Constitution, our laws, and all of that, anything related to that, reach out to us right now, please. I can't help if you don't email me. So reach out to me. Again, voicesfrominsideout@gmail.com. All one word, by the way. Reach out. I will help. If I can't, Jaylee will help. If she can't, we'll find somebody that will. Jaylee?
That's right. That's absolutely correct. And also, keep in mind, we have a brand new website up and running, which is easy and convenient to use. That website is from inside to outside.com. Again, that's from inside, the word to, T-O, outside.com. From inside to outside.com. Check it out, and you can easily connect with us there.
Yeah, all of our platforms, Twitter, YouTube, and you name it, is already linked into that site. So again, if you have problems finding me like you are right here, right now, go to that site. You'll find me on Twitter and on the, of course, the other platforms that I belong to. Now, keep in mind, we're in the process of expanding. And here's why we haven't expanded when we first started. Basically, when we start this podcast scenario or anything related to this podcast, we're testing the waters right now. And I think Jaylee, the colleague and the owner of this podcast, would agree. You know, we just don't jump into something, folks, and, and take that risk. We want to test the waters first. We want to test out these web pages, these websites, this and that. And of course, some of this stuff takes money to operate, start, and run. And not to sound like I'm beating this podcast up, me or Jaylee or anybody else that's involved with this podcast, but sometimes we don't got it like that just to throw around money-wise. We just don't have it like that. So sometimes it takes longer for us to start our different platforms, but we're looking at different platforms. We brainstormed last night in private chat, and we're looking at different podcasts, different platforms. So if you stay patient with us and work with us, we will expand and get ourselves more out there. So and of course, I'll update you guys right here on this channel when something new comes alight. Jaylee?
Yeah, exciting times for us, Jay, and the whole team in the studio. And, of course, I'm sure our fans enjoy how we've already expanded a little bit. They can see some major improvements thanks to all your hard work. And we cannot wait to see how this is going to roll out in the future. And we're going to hopefully launch I would say, even a more improved podcast when we have the resources to do so. The ultimate goal, Jay, and for all our listeners is to make sure we are a one-stop shop for those who need to come for help and resources regarding prison-related issues, and to continue to give a voice to those who otherwise would not have one if this podcast didn't exist.
No, absolutely. Great insight, sister. I really do appreciate that. So coming up this coming Friday, we're going to be doing something a little different on this podcast. As you guys remember, we had a contest. That went really well. We will be doing more contests similar to that in upcoming shows. And we're working out ideas and all of that. But coming up this Friday, I'm going to be doing a podcast, and this is going to be kind of surprising to you, Jaylee, because I was thinking about it earlier today before we did this one here tonight. And I'm going to do I don't know if that might be a good idea or not, but I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to do it anyways. If I don't take risks, how are you going to know, right? So I'm going to tag and do a show on another very popular podcaster. And some of you may know who he is. He goes by his channel name, JD Delay. And he is a major YouTuber, major star on YouTube right now. Huge following, huge everything. And I'm going to tag him and I'm going to talk about his program this coming Friday. And I don't want you to miss it. So if you're new here, sub now, because I'm going to talk about this guy's channel and see what he does and see what your guys' perspective on this guy is. And I think it's going to be very, very telling. You're all going to be really entertained and love this show coming up this Friday. Jaylee?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Jay, and can't wait to see how that develops over the past couple of days. And the future is definitely looking up for us. And I'm so excited and thrilled to know that this is a team effort. And again, thanks to our loyal fans and listeners, you make this podcast survive and do what it does. Without you, we wouldn't be here. So thank you so much.
Well, again, I wouldn't be able to do this at all in a nutshell if it wasn't for you. So you invented it. You started it. I just made it happen in reality out here on the street. So thank you, Jaylee, for coming up with the brainstorm idea on this.
Yeah, no, you're more than welcome. You've done a great job. It's been such a great success. Even though we don't have the kind of followers we would hope to have had, we've had a lot of haters and enemies in the mix, and they've kind of slowed things down. But you know what? We become stronger people based on our haters. You know what? The haters are not going to stop us. They're only going to fuel us and push us forward in the right direction. And I'm just so thrilled to take this journey with you, and I know our fans are as well.
Right. Well, we got to overcome the haters, just like you've told me on numerous occasions. Of course, I have a statement on that too. Just like you said, there's an old saying out there, and you said it too. Stop feeding the trolls. And what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is this. They put signs out when we go to the zoo or we go to a park that has animals in it. And there's signs posted some places. Don't feed the animals. Okay, well, guess what, guys? Don't feed the trolls. This is what they want. This is what they do. This is who they are. This is called cyberbullying. And people have lost their lives and committed suicide from these people. You got to be strong. You got to be stronger, ladies and gentlemen. You have to be mindset strong, mentally strong when it comes to these losers. Because trolls are the most ignorant dummies out there. And I'm at the point at my age and whatnot that I don't got time to play childhood games. This is an adult site. This is dealing with real issues in our prisons. I don't got time to sit here and babysit you. Jaylee?
Yeah, absolutely. We have more meaningful, important things and positive things to do in our life. And that's why we ignore our haters every day. And, they can just suck on the dust as we leave them behind. Absolutely.
Well, you made a great point one time when we were having a conversation one time. You said that there's a reason why the windshield's bigger than the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
Do you remember that statement you told me a long time ago?
I do in part, but not all of it. So I was waiting for you to finish that.
Oh, basically what you basically said, and I got one more statement too. What you said was the windshield on a vehicle, the windshield's bigger than the rear view mirror. So why do we don't look back? We don't look in the rear view mirror. We look in the windshield. We look ahead, not backwards. But
that's right. Amen to that.
All right, sis. Well, thank you for tuning into this show. I do appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next podcast right here from Inside Out. Jaylee, thank you for showing up.
Good night. Yeah, thank you. And good night, everybody.
The caller has hung up.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, my closing thoughts for this podcast tonight, here it is. I had a very, very best friend of mine. Actually, I'm going to rephrase that. It goes beyond best friend. And yes, I have best friends. She's no longer with us, of course, obviously, unfortunately, sad but true. But I had a individual who I considered my mother, even though biologically she wasn't. And she made a statement to me one day that has always stuck with me, even to this very day. And that statement's this: life is all in what you want. I'll say it one more time. Life is all in what you want. That's it. Only you, ladies and gentlemen, can make your life better. Not government, not the trolls, not the haters, not even your own family, friends, and whatnot. You, and only you, can change your life for the better. I'm your host, Jay. I will see you guys in the next podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining. I do very much appreciate it. Good night, everybody.